Merry Christmas. You know, a few years ago, I think back in 2013 actually, I was in the the lobby for coffee time, and it was just a few days before Christmas. The residents and I were sitting and talking, and someone asked the question, "What was your most memorable Christmas?" And we all shared ideas. But there's one story I'd like to share with you. It was from Dorothy Lavoie. Dorothy actually passed away the next spring. Dorothy had been an army nurse during World War II, and she'd served in England. She said that the first place she was assigned was a hospital unit that took care of sick and wounded German prisoners. She said the prisoners were under guard, and she was a little nervous around them all the time. Frankly, they all were. After all, these German soldiers were the enemy. Well, she said as Christmas approached, the doctor on the ward decided to buy a Christmas tree. Now, because the ward was kept very warm for the comfort and safety of the patients, there was the tree they felt was going to would dry out too quickly. So though they bought the tree, they put it in a bucket and they set it outside the ward until Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve, it was the habit of the day for one team of nurses to cover another so that the whole ward could go out together for Christmas dinner, for their Christmas Eve dinner. And so Dorothy's group was just returning to the ward, and from their Christmas dinner, and they were going to decorate the Christmas tree. But she said as they approached the door to the ward, they saw that their Christmas tree, had been stripped bare of every branch. Every single branch had been cut off. She said it looked like just a bare stick standing up in a bucket, a tall stick. She couldn't believe anybody would do that to a Christmas tree. It was so, she said, I was young. It was my first Christmas away from home, and I burst into tears. The doctor of our unit, he said, look, he turned to the orderly, one of the enlisted men, and said, look, I don't care where you have to go or how much you have to pay. Get this girl a Christmas tree. So he went out and he found a Christmas tree. They decorated it. And they celebrated Christmas Eve as best they could. Well, the next morning, as she was heading into the ward, Dorothy said, to start her shift, she was still angry. She said she still was upset that somebody had destroyed her tree. But as she walked into the ward, she said there she saw around every light fixture there was a beautiful wreath made of evergreen boughs. Of course, they had been stripped from her tree. And from evergreen boughs, and hanging from that were the most beautiful decorations of stars and comets and angels. They'd been cut out of tin cans and other things that the medical staff had just thrown away. She said they were the most beautiful wreaths she ever saw, and they were surrounding every single light, and they were absolutely gorgeous. She said our patients, the German prisoners, had done this, and we were so touched. She said, and then we realized as we looked at the beautiful ornaments they had made, that they'd been cut out of tin cans. Now, prisoners weren't supposed to have anything that was sharp. They were the enemy, and as I said, she had been afraid of them, and so had most of the medical team. But suddenly we realized that if they had some things sharp enough to cut tin cans into Christmas stars and comets and angels, then they had something sharp enough to have hurt them anytime they wanted to. Dorothy said, but they hadn't hurt us. Instead, they had made beautiful Christmas decorations for all of us, prisoner and medical team, to enjoy. She said, from that time, everything changed. We began to trust them, and they began to trust us. And it wasn't long before I realized that they had been just as afraid of me as I had been of them. She said it was a special Christmas. And Dorothy said, it just goes to show you, if you treat your enemies with decency and kindness, they just might turn into friends. I hope you'll spend some time thinking about what your most special Christmas was, your best Christmas memories. And if you'd like, why don't you let me know? Maybe we can share them with the other residents, the way Dorothy has shared her story with you. Merry Christmas.
In fond memory of Dorothy Lavoie, World War II Army nurse, 1921 to 2014.